So you haven't heard me. All right, I just want to tell you that we will be taking questions in the chat, so please don't hesitate to put questions in there, and Rob may stop during his presentation and take some of the questions, or we will have a time at the end to take questions as well. So Rob is our speaker, and he's an '83 graduate of the School of Management and the founder of a company called Achieving Leadership, the Greenlee Group. He's dedicated to transforming smart professionals and high achievers into influential leaders.
Which means all of Yale is, because all Yaleys are high achievers and smart professionals.
And he does this through his executive coaching, team facilitation, and leadership development practice. He's an executive officer of the Yale Alumni Association and a leadership development has a leadership development practice. Let's see, and he's past president of YaleBoston. He applies leadership lessons learned from his experience as a director of leadership at the MIT Sloan School of Management. And he's had 2 decades as a senior human resources, leadership, and organizational development executive at several Fortune 500 companies. So I'm thrilled that Rob has decided to join us tonight and tell us his story and how we can all lead our life on purpose.
Thank you, Elaine. Welcome, everybody. It's so good to see this great crowd, some familiar faces, and just thrilled that you're joining us tonight. Listen, I think leadership is about influencing other people to have impact. And the thing that's near and dear to my heart, which is part of the subject tonight, how can we take a role to lead our own lives and career on purpose? So this came out of an effort when I first joined the board. Elaine and Steve and I were just talking about this a few minutes ago, that Careers Life in Yale was set up to bring alumni back to campus to help students understand what's out there with their careers and lives. And we, in one of my first board meetings, we said, wait a minute, this is great because the students are loving it. But what are we doing for our fellow alumni to help us with our careers and life? And how do we take the wisdom that we learn and lessons learned to apply it to each other and to help each other support through things? And so there was a pilot that I did in Boston in early 2017, where we said, let's try to go through this experience. And actually, I see Esther Zerbel is on here. She was part of that pilot. And so tonight I'm going to give you a high-level overview of that. And the idea is tonight to think about what is leadership, what is management. I'm going to invite you all to think about managing your life and when you've actually experienced other people who've been good leaders, and we'll put in chat some of your experiences, because I want to connect my point of view with your own learning. And then I'll share a model that I have used since the Sloan School at MIT with all my clients that I think we can then apply to our own life and career. I'm going to invite you, before the night is over, we have until 9 o'clock, to think about one area of your life that you want to make better. I'm going to have us go through. I don't think we've done this before in this Must-See Yale Thursday night series. I'm going to have a 10-minute of guided meditation to try to visualize what that life is that you might want to have better. And then we'll talk about what one step you can take. So that's the plan for tonight. Part of why this is near and dear to my heart is that I've had a pretty successful career, and I'm very involved with Yale Alumni now, but I wasn't always. When as Elaine talked about, I spent 20 years in large companies and human resources, organization development, leadership development. The capstone was to be the director of leadership at the Sloan School at MIT. It was just the job of my dreams at the time. And between the time I interviewed for the job, finished interviewing for the job, and before I started, I was rear-ended in a significant auto accident. My car was totaled. I had some physical injuries, but also had a mild traumatic brain injury. And I did not appreciate what impact that had on my own life. And I was in denial, and I started my job as the director of leadership at the Sloan School. It was fantastic, but my year's appointment was not renewed. And frankly, I thought my life was over and I didn't know what to do with myself. And instead of connecting with other Yale alumni or my college alumni, I basically retreated into my own room and office and did not connect with others. And I realized once, it took me about 3 years to get over that. And it really started when a classmate called me up or emailed and said, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm going to go back to SOM and do some mock interviewing with the students. I haven't seen you. How about, will you show up there? All right, well, I see you there. It's like, okay, I wasn't planning on it, but I did go. And what I realized when I did the mock interviewing with the students, how much I still had in my life versus what I had lost. I've been so focused on what I had lost in my life. I wasn't, 300 people applied for the Sloan School for that job. I got that job. I was like I used to say I was like a Porsche that made his living with card tricks or something. And then I became a Ford and I just did normal transportation, but I couldn't make my living doing the special things that I used to do. But focusing on what I still had versus what I lost was a huge shift in me. And getting involved with the Yale Alumni Association, as Elaine had said, Yale SOM alumni, then YaleBoston, and now the board. It has been an incredible journey for me to express my own leadership and to really appreciate things. So tonight, I want to share some lessons learned from leadership. I want us to think about how we can create safe spaces and supportive spaces for each other to look at where we're going and to take a leadership role in our life and career. So that's the objective. So first, let me talk about management versus leadership. So what happens when we just manage our lives? A lot of times, particularly with so much to do, we're just trying to make it through and manage things. And so like, when I think about management, I think a lot about having my calendar in place and the budgets and the resources and coordinating with people and things like that. So just a moment, what does it mean for you to manage things? What does it mean for you to manage things in your own life? I want to connect these topics to your own experiences. So if you would in the chat, put in what it might mean for you. Oh, I see. I have to manage my diabetes is an example. Oh, and Mike Miller, I see earlier, diagnosis of TBI has changed dramatically over the last 20 years. Yes, and I've learned a lot about brain plasticity, how much if we can really develop ourselves and go forward. Managing my time is one of the things that we have as far as management. Having my life in order. I feel like there's a good balance. There's space for things I enjoy. Entering a new career as a retired person is managing things. Managing family relationships, my time with my kids and my dogs. Okay, so these are all good things. Managing, finding a new job, managing your children. I love that. Managing stress, to control what you can control. Management's really important. Oh, paper clutter, stress, deciding what I want to devote myself to. We couldn't get very far if we weren't managing things. And I see some more things like productivity and clients and things like that. So we can manage just fine. We all have great executive functionings. We can manage just fine. But I think there's a lot more. And I want to talk for a few minutes about leadership and what leadership is. But before I do, and if you have a few more things with management, please keep that going. With leadership, think about a leader or leaders that have inspired you, or that you've worked with, or that you are just think is a role model for you. If you could think about it and put in the chat, what is it that you've seen that effective leaders have done or said or helped focus on that inspire you, that you think makes them effective leaders? If you could just take a few minutes about what is it effective leaders do. So they put others before themselves. They listen, ask good questions, look for ways to help you be successful. They understand, empathize with my perspective. Oh, 30,000-foot view. So there's a perspective that leaders have, a sense of fairness, empathy, listening skills, building trust, always prepared. They inspire others to achieve, have a shared vision, self-care, taking the time necessary to make good decisions. Wow, these things are coming so fast. Strong understanding of how people think and work, vision of a better future, collaboration. Oh gosh, positive energy, clear sense of goals. They very seldom use the word I in meetings. Building group discernment, seeing the forest with the trees. They encourage, they guide, they listen. Humility, grounded in quiet self-confidence, authentic sharing, optimism, ability, I think, generosity with time, insight, wisdom, setting and keeping the eyes on the goals, confidence. I want to tell you, as I read these things, I feel more energized just hearing that than I do with management. I hope you do too. There's something about these things, and please keep it coming. Oh, Hawaii, the use of the word I instead of we instantly marks you as a mainland ale, okay? But there is something about the we. There is something about the vision. There is something about inspiration. There's something about getting a big picture. There's something about empathy and perspective. So leadership, having impact, hopefully positive impact on others. But how can we apply this to ourselves in our own life and our careers? There is a framework that I taught the students at MIT Sloan that has 4 basic capability models. I'm going to review that with you. Hopefully we'll connect it to some of these comments and then talk about how it can be applied to our own life and our career. So the 4 capabilities are relating. Relating comes first. I mean, particularly at MIT Sloan, there's such a smart technical group often that to emphasize relating first is important. Visioning is next. And sorry, visioning is one of the key aspects of leadership, is having a vision of the future. That's the essence. And this is, we're going to spend a little bit more time on that tonight, how we can have a vision of a future for ourselves. Then a concept called sense making, which I had not ever really heard of before. I'd spent 20 years in training and development, had not heard this concept of sense making, which is like diagnosing. Well, I'll come back to that. And then inventing. So what are we going to do differently? How do we invent and implement in a creative way? So if we go through that cycle, I'm going to go through it from a leadership viewpoint and then talk about how we apply it to our own lives and our careers. So relating from a leader viewpoint is listening, which is inquiry, as well as sort of directing or advocacy. So having that combination of things is a very important part of the relating. But it's also looking beyond the usual suspects. Usually you're looking beyond the people that are just in your normal clique or normal group. Getting that perspective beyond is one of the effective things of leaders. Then visioning, I mentioned, is a most important part of leadership, because it's like, where are we going? So people talk about management is, what is it, putting a ladder up against the wall or something like that. And leadership is where it should go. Management is it's how to get there, but leadership is where are we going? I think part of the thing about leadership and visioning is why. Why are we here? So I mentioned tonight, part of my why that we're here is that I had a traumatic experience, and I want to make sure that my colleagues learn from it and that we can apply these lessons to ourselves. But why we're here tonight too is I want to have you walk out of here with the vision for your own selves. Martin Luther King and his I Have a Dream speech is really the classic visioning speech, but I think a visioning speech can be the future that we want, what's the state we want to go to, but it also can be just telling people why we're doing something. So that's the second piece, visioning. The third piece of sense making is, so where are we? If the future state or vision is why, then the sense making is what is actually going on. Whether it's diagnosing the current situation, assessing our strengths and weaknesses. One of the concepts we taught the students at the Sloan School at MIT was that we all have pictures, mind maps, a mental map of how we see the world. And that often it's a way to have shorthand, and we get our mental maps that sometimes are fixed, and we don't see things that we would otherwise, because we have that fixed map. So the best leaders are trying to get down to primary data. What is it that actually is going on, so we can uncover how things are, and also to see from a systems viewpoint, steps that I take today that may have impact later, but don't necessarily see that direct connection. But if you turn the thermostat up and the heat doesn't come on immediately, then the house gets too hot and you turn it down, it doesn't get cold. And so just the sort of the systems view. And then finally inventing. What are we going to do differently? How do we make experiments? How do we try things? How do we take small steps to go forward? So that's the leadership cycle. I'm going to take a moment here, see if there's any questions before I talk about how to apply it to ourselves. And I see that there are some questions.
Let's see, there's not.
Maybe comments.
If anybody wants to raise their hand, they can do that. We will try to see if you're.
Elaine, it's Steve. I'm happy to hop in very quickly. I see one comment, Rob, that just came in. Leadership is a position, not a person, with a question mark, I think.
Oh.
And it reminded me of a personal view I have, which is that there are elements without which I think you can't have leadership. You know, they're necessary conditions for leadership. For example, the need for change, in my opinion, is a necessary condition for leadership. But I happen not to think of leadership as a position. I think leadership is personal. It relates to context. You can't over-define it. You know, you may be able to put some boundaries on it, but you can't over-define it. So those are just some thoughts I have.
Thank you, Steve. Let me say I agree with you, and I'm so glad whoever asked that. Thank you for asking that question. I think that, so it looks like Eric Mencken. You can have being a manager or not is a position, but I think being a leader, any situation calls for you to have that moment of truth where you can be a leader or be a bystander. And that's, I think, one of the big differences between management and leadership, that there are roles of management, but leadership is what drives you to take action, hopefully for the good in any moment. So that's a good distinction.
Rob, Shiva mentioned some ideas are missing in your framework. Inspiring, motivating is an important attribute that needs to be included. I assume that's somewhere in there.
And I would put that under the visioning. Great visions inspire and motivate people. And it could also be a part of the relating as well. Understanding different people and what is it that makes them tick. And then how do you sort of set up the situations to make that work.
And there's also a question of how come so many bad leaders are selected and elected for leadership positions?
Oh my God.
We know what great leaders are.
That is a great question. I wish I had the answer to that. I think part of it is because people see the surface things and they are sort of enamored with what's on the surface and not seeing what's underneath. And I'll tell you one thing, I worked for this consulting company called McBurr early in my career before I went, right after I went to SOM. And part of McBurr we did was we compared outstanding and average performers. We had the contract with the US Navy to do their leadership development. You have two people in the same role, one's outstanding, one's average. What makes the difference? It's not what schools they went to, sorry, Yaleys, but it's not how much experience they have, but it's the thing called competencies, how they're thinking, how they're acting, what they're saying, and their character, what they're going to do in those moments of truth where leadership is there, and do they take the leadership aspect or not?
Helen, could you go down to the car?
Oh, Isaac, you might want to put yourself on mute.
So Rob, you go on and we'll save some questions for later.
Yeah, we'll save some questions. So let's go back through about how we apply this leadership framework to our own lives and careers. So leadership is typically you lead others, but this idea of how do we lead ourselves? So this idea of how do we apply relating to our own selves. So we heard earlier about compassion, listening, inquiry, as well as advocacy. I think there's too many times where we don't stop and listen to ourselves. What is it that my body is telling me? What is it? The little thoughts, maybe a little question in the back of my mind. Do I pay attention to it or do I let it go? So I think in some ways, as relating is the first and most important part of, to start with leadership. I think it's for others, it's also for ourselves. I have a particular point of view. When we first started, Christine Walsh and I were the first co-chairs of the Careers Life in Yale Alumni to Alumni. When we first looked at that, we said, how is it that we have so many Yaleys who are so successful, such high achievers? They go to Yale College or Yale Graduate School, professional schools. They're doing the right thing. They get out in the workforce. And then after a year or 2 or 3 or whatever, they realize, I'm really unhappy. This is not what I want to do. I've invested all of this in my education. What now? I know for myself, listen, I was in the class of '83, it was a few decades ago, but there still is a little bit of the parental voice in the back of my head about what I should be doing as the good Jewish boy from South Carolina, with what my parents would expect me to do. And I think to what extent do we listen, acknowledge it, but then look more internally with our hearts and our own capabilities. So that's the relating piece. From a visioning viewpoint, if you can't imagine where you want to go with your life and your career, I think it's really hard to get there. We've talked in the alumni board about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've seen in lots of different places that I have traveled, that people who grew up in a particular set of aspirations, they believe that's all they can do. And they can't even imagine getting out of whatever the station that they're in. Or as Yaleys, if you have a vision, going back to that parental voice of what you're supposed to do, how do you take a vision of where you want to go differently? So I think the idea of being able to see a future that you want, that helps you get there. And also to know why am I here? What's my purpose here? We're going to come back to the visioning because I want to have you have an experience with that. I have to say my experience of it, maybe 2/3, 3/4 of the people respond the best to a positive vision, but a third to a quarter respond best to a negative vision. What they don't want, they want to avoid. And I think if you have that negative vision, you do sometimes want to translate, what does that mean for me in a positive way? So that's for ourselves. And then sense making, which is what's going on. It's, do you know yourself? The inventory of what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your values? Where do you want to be having your career in your life? What are the trends out there? Is there a spot for me? Where's that overlap between what my skills are and where the needs of the marketplace are? And this is where relating and sense making combine together, reaching out to your alumni network to talk to people and get information on interviews, and find out what's going on, and updating your mental map. That's a key piece of the sense making. And then inventing, what can we do differently? Just even like this series of must-see Yale on Thursday nights. We started with just a couple of webinars, and then Jeff remembered that TV series and said, let's have a different mindset, and trying it. We'll try it for first couple of months and see how it works. There are you can follow people, particularly if students can follow alumni around, or you can shadow somebody. You can just have the information interviews sort of walk through, help me walk through the day in your life for others. So that's how we apply it to ourselves. So let me take a moment to pause and see if there's any questions about that. And I see some comments about Jamie Raskin's speech.
I think Rob, some of the comments had to do with when you talked about being sort of unhappy where you were right now. And someone mentioned that that was them right this minute. And someone else said, you're not alone, you know, just being enchanted and feeling like, oh, I'm kind of stuck where I am. Where do I go from here? So
Yes.
I think that that's kind of struck a chord with a number of people.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for sharing that. And you are not alone. And my hope and expectation is that we go forward with more careers, life, and Yale activities. We'll keep having these kind of conversations. I see we're just about halfway through our hour together. So I'm going to invite you to think about an area of your life that you will want to improve or want to be better, because I want this to be a little interactive. And so one of the things is take a moment. You don't need to put this in the chat, but I think you need to mark it down for yourself. What area of your life would you like to have be better? And let me just share some areas that there are possibilities. It could be just your physical and home environment. I know I'm a pack rat and I still like wanting to go through my boxes and things. It could be health and fitness, or it could be romance, significant other relationships. It could be the situation with your family. It could be something related to your friends and community. Maybe it's about your career. This is careers, life, in Yale. Finances, resources, personal growth, spirituality, spiritual growth, or maybe fun, recreation. There could be a lot of other areas that you might want to make better. But just a moment to I would like to have everybody have one area that they say, you know, all right, this is what I'd like to have better in my life or my career right now. Because in a minute, I'm gonna walk you through a sort of meditative exercise to help crystallize that vision for yourself. So when you've got something that you've focused on, I see some people are putting in. If you feel comfortable putting in, that'd be wonderful. Just even write down what sort of area of your life and career you're interested in. I'm just going to give it a minute or two to make sure everybody has identified something. We see social life, career, vision for this new business, career direction is number one right now. Healthy diet and exercise. These are some of the examples of people and what they're looking for. Does everybody have something in their life or career that they want to have better? Can you raise your hand? I see people shaking. Okay, great. Anybody need more time? If you need more time, say stop. I'm only seeing the first screen, so I'm going to assume that's okay. So listen, thank you for coming up with that. I'm going to invite you for the next 10 minutes to close your eyes and to be present with me to go through a guided meditation exercise to try to get better clarity on the vision for this area in your life you want to make better. Okay? So if you get comfortable in your chair, I'm actually standing up because I'm doing this presentation, but if you're standing up, sit down. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. But if you're in a safe space, please take a moment. Close your eyes, make yourself comfortable, rest. Feel yourself in your body. And take a deep breath in. Take a deep breath in and hold it. And then going out, 1, 2, 3. Let it out slowly, fully, all the way out. Take another deep breath in. Hold it. All right, let it out. And continue to take some deep breaths, slowly and fully, taking your breath in, letting it all the way out. Taking your breath in, letting it all the way out. And just allow your natural breathing pattern to emerge. Breathing in, breathing out, and bring your awareness to the top of your head. Notice a relaxing feeling from your crown. Just notice and imagine a relaxing feeling from your crown all the way over your face, dribbling back to the back of your neck and your shoulders. Oh, relax your shoulders. Let that relaxing feeling just permeate through your shoulders and spread through your chest and your abdomen and your back. Let relaxation spread through your thighs and your legs and your ankles. Your feet are just relaxedly touching the ground. You have a relaxed breath. Just allow the self-talk just to pass. Let your thoughts come and go. You're breathing and you're relaxing. You're breathing and you're relaxing. Breathing and relaxing. Now imagine that you are leading your desired life. Imagine that you're leading your desired life, your career. Imagine the area of your life, your career that you want to be better is there. It's happening in front of you. Imagine that. What do you see around you? You're leading your desired life. What do you see around you? You're leading your desired life or career. Who's with you? You're leading your desired life or career. What are you doing? You're leading your desired life or career. What are you doing? You're leading your desired life and career. What are you hearing? What are you hearing around you? You're leading your desired life and career. What are you feeling? You're leading your desired life or career. Just take it all in. Take it all in. You're leading your desired life and career. Embrace it. Hold on to that picture, that experience of leading your desired life and career. Hold on to that. I'm going to count from 1 to 10. At 10, you'll be fully refreshed holding that picture and feeling of leading your desired life and career, and you'll be aware of your surroundings. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4. You're beginning to come aware of your surroundings. 5, 6, 7. You're more alert. 8, you may find your eyes opening if they're closed. 9, 10, you're completely alert and aware of your surroundings. And take a moment, capture the feeling or pictures of your desired life and career. Take a moment, either write it down, open up a Word document, or draw a picture. Just take a moment to capture that picture, experience, feeling of living your desired life and career. If you feel like sharing any of it in the chat, feel free to do it, because there's one more step I'm going to have you take before we open it up to questions and dialogue. But I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to capture what you saw, what you felt, who you were with, what that was like, what was there. Okay? Because the question next is about one small step you can take to help realize that. But before we do, is anybody, I know it's a big group, but is anybody willing to share what that exercise was like for them? Either in the chat or raising your hand to talk. Is anybody willing to share something about that? I see that Benjamin wants me to be the voiceover for his entire life. Thank you, Ben. Anybody get a crystallized view? Daniel, you want to say something? Or is that just a hello?
Okay, no, well, I was taking a risk, so well, it was sometimes difficult because I had my kids interrupt me, but it was you are very relaxing. So Benjamin had the right idea going there. I just wrote a couple of notes here. I said I'm creative. Obviously, this is very general. They're just thoughts, right? I'm having many thoughtful conversations with colleagues. I am having fun seeing the fruits of my creative work. I'm expressing myself. And probably most important is not the content, but what I'm saying, these last three things. I'm relaxed, I feel energized, and I don't feel afraid.
Oh, wow. Yes. I love it. This is the thing about relating to ourselves, embracing ourselves, having these moments of pause and reflection. That's part of taking a leadership role for our life and a career. Daniel, thank you so much for sharing that. I see in the chat, thank you, fabulous exercise, stress-free, confirm what I've been thinking for a while. So I'm very familiar. This is like, connected to Buddhist New Age practice. It was a vision of a life completely different from my current one. Wow. For me, it was more of a feeling of right place, right time, right reason, searching for that, finding the good, being in control of what I do. It's not about me, it's about starting emotion. It's about what others are doing, how they are inspired and empowered to live. I was surprised by the view I saw. I was being heard. My voice mattered. I had energy and fear was not near. So nice to focus so much positive potential and possibility instead of negative. I felt a bit far away. I was with someone I hadn't seen for a long time. Profound things. We just spent 10 minutes together with a large group doing this. I think it's amazing. This is part of taking the leadership role, say, let's step back. Let's keep clarifying the vision of what we want for our lives and our careers. And they say a vision is like, what is it? A dream is a vision and a dream without action. A vision without action is just a dream, but a vision with action is how you actually realize your life and career on purpose. So I'm going to ask everyone, for whatever it was, Daniel, whether it was the creativity or the sense of the last three feelings you had, what is one thing you can do, one small step you can do to help realize that vision, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, this week, this month? Think of one small step. This goes back to my colleagues, neuroscience. I have a colleague, Pratt Bennett, who helped me with this pilot, to think, how do we apply neuroscience to actually implementing our dreams? And part of it is you dream big, but you make sure you take one small step forward. And the thing about Yaleys and high achievers is that one small step is something that often can be a big step for many, but the one small step, the definition is that you know you can achieve that step. It's like 100% guaranteed. So even if it's something like, I need to network more, so I'm going to call up 3 people and network. No. With the one small step, I'm going to put time on my calendar to call up people. Or one small step, I'm going to identify the people that I'm going to call. It's about getting the momentum started. It's getting one step in that direction. So I see we're about 3/4 of the way through. We have about 15 minutes left. I've gone through why we're doing this tonight, what brought me here. We talked about management versus leadership, our own experiences of that, how we can apply relating, visioning, sense making, inventing to our own lives and career. You each identified an area. We had a few moments of reflection, and hopefully you each have identified one small step that you're taking to go forward. So this is a chance to, next 15 minutes, to open it up for questions, dialogue, comments. And someone said, yeah, make time to update my resume. Sharing here is a small step for me. Thank you for doing that.
Rob?
Yes.
My husband, Dennis Upper, was a Yale class of 64, was a brilliant clinical psychologist. And he used your technique of progressive relaxation, he called it, in the behavioral science terms. He recorded this and would give recordings or record it on people's iPhones so they could listen to it before they went to bed or before a moment of crisis or during, and offer that one small specific step. If they're trying to stop smoking, or if they're trying to get out of the house to make that first step from here to the mailbox for exercise, then that was an achievement. That was one small step. And hearing his voice, hearing him repeat it, put you in a state of relaxation. Think about, well, maybe tomorrow I can walk 2 blocks. And before you know it, you're jogging, you're doing the Boston Marathon in a couple of years. But it's that one small step that gives you a sense of breaking through your inertia.
Yes.
Moving forward.
Breaking through your inertia, Nancy. Thank you. Breaking through inertia and then having a little bit of something you can create the momentum to keep going forward with.
And a sense of achievement, a sense of personal accomplishment.
Yes.
I walked past the ice cream in the grocery store today, over to the fruit and vegetable counter, and bought an apple and had that for dessert. And boy, do I feel better.
Well, as you talk, Nancy, thank you for sharing that. As you talk, I think about the idea that if you think about the energy in our brains, that our executive functioning is just in this small part in the front of our brain. It's almost like the little light bulb in the refrigerator. And then the rest of our brain is like the whole house or neighborhood or city. And so as we try to consciously manage things, having our unconscious supporting us through the vision, that our unconscious will listen to that vision or listen to those directions, and it'll help us go past the
inertia.
To get to the fruits and vegetables. Thank you for sharing. Other comments, thoughts, questions? I see someone said, I just entered a block of time to allow myself to exercise tomorrow. Hey, Elaine.
The question, do you think there are goals that are too big, so big perhaps that they become oppressive by the sheer difficulty in achieving them?
This reminds me of something else, that I wrote a book about ballet dancers' career transitions, and so many of them were trained in the eat, sleep, and breathe ballet. They didn't know what else they were going to do with their lives. And one young man wanted to go to college and wanted to go to school. And he said exactly what Rob said. What's the first step I have to take? Well, how do you get to college? Look up colleges, what look interesting, what are in my neighborhood or whatever. Then what's the next step? I have to get the application. Then what's the next step? I have to fill out the application. And you break down this humongous thing of, I want a college degree, which is 4, 8, 7 years in the future. And they get so frozen in not being able to do anything that they just don't do anything.
Right.
So from him, I
Something-
learned that you take one step at a time
Right.
and persist at it every day and break your problem down to the smallest and smallest and smallest.
Right.
Pick up my phone or look up the internet for the number or the email address.
So there's something called Big Hairy Audacious Goal, BHAGs, which I think was In Search of Excellence, if I'm right, anyway, it was one of those books. And what it says is that in many ways you want those big, hairy, audacious goals. It's fine. It's just to try to eat the elephant or do the big goal. It's too big if you haven't broken it down into chunks. And so if something is ever too big, it's just how do you chunk it so you get into manageable chunks and you start from the beginning. Good to great. Thank you. That was the book, Big Hairy Audacious Goals. Thank you. Other questions, comments?
There are just a couple. There are a couple of things that people are saying that they're doing. Setting a smartphone alarm reminding me to email one friend a short message of encouragement or gratitude for our friendship. I saw different things that didn't obviously fit together. What do I make of that?
So one of the questions is, what can we do together as Yaleys that we can't do on our own? When I was president of YaleBoston, that was the thing that I kept asking. And I think from a leadership viewpoint, what can we do together is that we couldn't do on our own. From a personal life and leadership viewpoint, what can I do if I am embracing all of my passion and interest toward a vision of where I want to go? What can I do by embracing all of it that I wouldn't do if I'm just sort of managing what I'm supposed to be managing? So other questions, comments about management leadership, but I can only see the first page. If somebody wants to have a question, you need to turn on your cameras and wave so we can see you, or put it in the chat.
There's a raise hand function.
Oh, there's a raise hand.
Michelle.
Michelle.
Hi, I typed my question into the box, but as you were talking, Rob, and speaking with Nancy, I thought about the fact that, I'm often very outcomes driven. And I think in this conversation, I've been thinking about, the vision. I'm good at doing the visioning part. It's the breaking things down into small steps that's very difficult for me. And I often feel overwhelmed by a large goal for my own life, not in, professionally, I'm doing all kinds of things, but when I envision the life I want for myself, it's often very different.
Yes.
And I just have this thought, do you think that we can achieve like that sense of accomplishment or self-leadership as we're talking about here through the little steps, even if we don't ever reach that final vision that we created for ourselves? What if I never make it to the BHAG, right? But can I feel contentment in the process towards that? Because I think a lot of people here, we feel angst because what we're living is not where we necessarily want to be. And we may never get to that thing. So where do you find the balance between this is where I am, this is where I might want to be, but I might never get to that total place?
Some people would say, Michelle, that you'll never reach the BHAG goals, and that's the natural state, and that as long as you're making progress, that is success. So that's I think the shorthand answer. And that's why you want to have the small steps be such that you really can accomplish it. There's this thing about sort of the normal bell curve. What's the sweet spot? If it's too easy, you're not going to be all that motivated. But if it's too hard, you get overwhelmed. And so how do you self-titrate or self-modulate to get to that just enough of a stretch, but still achievable for me to be able to do? I think that is really where the sweet spot is in breaking down the goals and going forward.
Thank you. That's super helpful. And I think somebody mentioned here, I think Mitch mentioned, could that be self-management? I hope that your follow-up to this class is a class on self-management, because I would definitely take that one.
Okay, well, actually, please put in the chat what else you'd like to see. One of the things is self-management. It could be other what we also learned from neuroscience to have implementation. One other thing, which is that Michelle, you talk about professionally how good you are with achieving your goals, but how different it is for our own selves. I think part of the relating piece is getting somebody else to help you with it. I mean, I happen to be a professional coach, and I coach executives, and I help executives make change. And part of why we do that is it's really hard to do it on your own. I think part of the Yale community, anybody on here for this example, reaching out and get somebody to be your partner in helping you be your best with each other is a great next step. Elaine, are there any other questions or comments? Anybody else want to raise their hands to make a
hands raised, but I'm still looking.
Okay.
Let's see. Feel free to. Yeah, I see Philip. Do you have something, Philip?
I don't know. You just passed over something that sounded pretty interesting. Mentorship and so forth. Maybe this organization wants to take on that task of arranging what you just said.
Oh, about mentorships. So if
somebody else to work with toward your goal.
Yes. So Philip, I think Steve might have mentioned this at the very beginning. He has often before. If you haven't signed up with Cross Campus, the Yale Alumni Exchange Community, please sign up for that. And Chelsea, if you would put the Cross Campus link in there, that is a place to find like-minded people, alumni, and there's these, I guess, sort of algorithms that help make suggestions for other people that have similar interests as you in that Yale community. But I find LinkedIn really valuable. People find Facebook something they use. But I think that there is something that I've done for a while called connecting with Yaleys while physically and socially distancing. We did that all through last spring, and I couldn't continue past the summer. But maybe, Philip, we might think about reinstituting that this spring to have a couple of those things, talk about how do we connect with each other and support each other.
The other thing that when they mentioned mentoring, when Philip mentioned mentoring, it's also important to know that the students will connect with the alums as well. And it's a nice opportunity to be able to mentor students as well as connect with other alums.
Right. Steve, I think the platform right now is set up for alumni mentoring students, but if there is a future for alumni to alumni too.
The A to A or alumni to alumni mentoring needs to happen right now, sort of organically on the platform. I will add something. You know, many of us seek mentors in our lives. We all need them at all times in our lives. I find that by mentoring students, which you can do by signing up for our mentoring program on Cross Campus, by mentoring a student, you end up knowing a whole lot more about yourself. So I would encourage you to mentor a student, not only because it's fun and meaningful for them and because you feel like you're doing something important, but you'll come out knowing yourself better.
And that's on Cross Campus, right, Steve?
Right, on Cross Campus.
Okay. And I see Robert and Shiva both had their hands up.
Right. Robert?
Okay, I hope you can hear me. I'm a 62 grad, and I've been involved in space-based research, my primary business, but I've been involved in global economic development at the president and prime minister level, all based on Economics 201 at Yale. Thank you very much. But Michelle brought up a comment about setting goals too far and getting to the beehive and that kind of stuff. But that's okay, as some people say. It's not the ultimate goal. The journey is what you live in, and that's your reward. 100% of your reward. Getting the gold medal is not the reward. And so from that way, and years ago in 91, 92, I was, as one course, and I'm teaching the Soviet Union Politburo how to go from communism to capitalism. In the Soviet Academy of Science, the director and staff and corporation structure and all that kind of stuff. And what had happened in my trials and tribulations, I left graduate school in Arizona and started my own company. So don't believe me because I've never had a job. I started my own company. But along the way, I failed a lot, but I paid attention to what I did and why I did. And all of a sudden, about the third or fourth day in this 3-week type of interface with various power people, I realized that all those failures, I was able to teach the communists why they wanted to do something different and what would happen and how it would happen and why they should do it. So sometimes your reward comes 20 years later.
That's beautiful, Robert. Thank you so much. And you bring up a point that makes me think about fixed versus growth mindset, because part of having a growth mindset is actually trying and failing and learning from it. And Elaine, do we have time for one more question? We get Shiva to ask or his question or comment.
We could give him, yeah, we're at 9, but I think we'll close up real quick. But let's have Shiva give it.
Shiva, quick last comment or question.
To add to some of the points some others have made. We have an extraordinary group of people here. Each of us has succeeded in some ways, perhaps not in others. So a big part of the value, certainly for someone like me, is to go hear about other people's lives, because there's always something to learn from there. So it's not a simple mentoring relationship. I'm the mentor and you're the mentee. It is more this dialogue where we can help each other grow. So that's
a great comment and a great segue. Jeffrey, would you talk about the different channels and which channel is it that has career pivots? Because I think that the Shiva is very much one of the Thursday night things is related to that. Maybe Chelsea, you show up the next, would you show the next 4?
Yeah, I think it's a rolling schedule, and Shiva, you and I, met again a couple of weeks ago. Look, glad to see you tonight. So every rolling Thursday again. Next week's going to be a little different with students, but I guess March 4th is the next career pivots, and that one should be a real interesting one with the venture capital Minor Perkins. But every 4 weeks we'll see these show cycles. Come to all of them, but that's the cycle.
So next week is just for students, but this channel repeats every other. Thank you, Chelsea. And I just want to thank everybody. It's been great to spend this time with you. Really appreciate the chance to share my story and to walk you through this. And oh, let me give you. I'm happy to if you want to follow up. I'm going to put in my email. Please reach out, or I'm on cross campus, and that's another way to connect.
And thank you, Rob. It was a terrific program. I think we had a wonderful group here. I think I really appreciate everyone's participation, especially in the chat with all your thoughts and ideas. You really enhanced our whole program. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you at another on another Thursday night. So keep in touch, everybody.